Now see this picture. This is the medial side. This is corpus callosum. This is a column. This is a cylindrical structure like bent like this. This is known as fornix.
Fornix.
The name of this structure is fornix.
fornix.
No, I will. This is something else. This is something else. This is something else. It has got completely separate relationship. Nothing to do with this forceps major and forceps minor. Fornix. Fornix is this word, written like this. F-O-R-N-I-X. Fornix.
What does it stands for?
I will explain this. I will explain what does this mean. This structure which is موجود between the fornix and the corpus callosum, yani under surface of the corpus callosum, and this is a septum. There is a septum present over here, very thin septum like this one. This is septum. Bend inferior surface of the corpus callosum and the superior part of the fornix is a septum. This septum is known as septum pellucidum. This septum is making the medial wall of two parts of the lateral ventricle. The body and the anterior horn. So yani this means if you break this one, where you will enter? Into the body or in the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. Now the question is, this is whole is the septum pellucidum. I am saying this is making the medial wall of the anterior horn as well as the body. Now the question arises, up to which level is body and where from the body the anterior horn will start. So for this one, you have to make a vertical line like this. From where? From this nukta. What is this nukta? I told you this is anterior commissure. Isn't it or not? This is anterior commissure.
Yes.
Just behind the anterior commissure, and this is thalamus. This is the thalamus. This is the anterior limit of the thalamus. Between the anterior limit of the thalamus and the anterior commissure, there is an opening. There is an opening, small opening. This opening actually is coming from the lateral ventricle, and it is communicating the lateral ventricle with this ventricle, third ventricle. This foramen there should be known as, should be called anatomically as interventricular foramen. Right? This where it is lying interventricular موجود है ना, at the anterior end of the thalamus and posterior to the anterior commissure. It is lying the interventricular foramen. And please now remember, there is another name of this foramen, foramen of Monro. There is Stenson's duct is the name of the parotid duct. Wharton's duct is the name of the submandibular duct.
Rehever's duct for the sublingual.
For the sublingual. So these three ducts are having the separate names. Similarly, this foramen, which should not known as interventricular foramen, has another name, and it is known as foramen of Monro. So if you make a straight line, vertical line from this foramen of Monro like this, this is a boundary line which demarcates. This is therefore the anterior. This is the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. And this is the body of the lateral ventricle. The boundaries are very simple. If you just understand this picture over here, you will be saying there are three boundaries of the anterior horn. Look at this. Is where is the anterior horn? This is the anterior horn or not?
Yes.
Shuf. Floor is found by the rostrum of the corpus callosum. See, anterior horn. Floor is found by the rostrum of the corpus callosum. Roof is found by the body of the corpus callosum. So two boundaries are simple.
Medial the septum.
Medial is the septum. Medial is the septum pellucidum. Name is septum pellucidum. Name is septum pellucidum. You understand? So this is how the boundaries of the anterior horn finished. Again come to the boundaries of the body. Again you see now. The roof is found by the same body of the corpus callosum. Medial wall is the same. Septum pellucidum. Now is the floor. Now is the floor. No, I will explain. This structure is the thalamus. So the thalamus forms the floor of the body of the ventricle, body of the lateral ventricle. Floor of the body of the ventricle is formed by the thalamus. Yesterday we were saying that the thalamus has got a superior surface, an inferior surface, medial surface and lateral surface. Superior surface of the thalamus forms the floor of the body of the lateral ventricle. Superior surface of the thalamus forms the floor of the body of the lateral ventricle. This is the floor of the body of the. Now the question is that if you remove this one, this diencephalon, for example, if you remove the cerebrum from here, this will be the diencephalon connected with this portion And I told you that this is midbrain. This portion is these three: 1, 2, and 3. These three are the hindbrain. Sad, this pons, this is medulla oblongata, and this is cerebellum. These three are the parts of hindbrain. But if you make a vertical axis like this, cerebellum is coming in this axis or not? No. Which structures are coming in this axis? The midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. These three structures form the brain stem. And if you talk only about the hindbrain, you hide the midbrain. Midbrain is hidden, forebrain is gone. This is the hindbrain. Pons and medulla oblongata anteriorly, cerebellum posteriorly, they occupy a cavity. This cavity is the fourth ventricle. This cavity is the fourth ventricle. Quite? And this is the cavity of the midbrain. So I told you developmentally, because the brain develops from a tube, and tube contains a cavity. This cavity persists in the developed brain. So the portion which is present in the forebrain forms the two lateral ventricles and the third ventricle. The part of the cavity of the tube which is present in the forebrain will form two lateral ventricles and one third ventricle, because forebrain has got two parts: the cerebrum, two cerebral hemispheres, and diencephalon. So cavity in the diencephalon is third ventricle, two cavities in the cerebrum are two lateral ventricles. They communicate with the third ventricle. So there should be how many foramen? Two foramen. One on the right side, interventricular foramen, and one on the left side, interventricular. What is the other name of interventricular? Foramen of Monro. So, okay, this is the cavity in the forebrain. Then the cavity should persist in the midbrain also or not? Yes. But the cavity in the midbrain persists in the form of a canal. And you have to remember now the name of this canal. This is known as aqueduct. Aqueduct. A-C-Q-U-E-D-U-C-T. Aqueduct. Aqueduct. This is duct. Name of the cavity. And the scientist who discovered this one is known as Sylvius. So therefore, this total is known as the aqueduct of Sylvius.
Oh my God.
This is known as aqueduct of Sylvius. So the ventricular system is continuous like this. Lateral ventricular communicate with the third ventricle with the interventricular foramen. Third ventricle communicate with the fourth ventricle through the canal, aqueduct of Sylvius. Then this fourth ventricle continues in the cavity of the spinal cord. The name of the cavity of the spinal cord is central canal. Fortunately, there is no Sylvius. Central canal. So, kullun these cavities are continuous with each other. So, this is about the lateral ventricle. So, lateral ventricle, the posterior horn of the lateral ventricle has got, I have written two walls. Sometimes there can be three walls present. Because why we are saying two walls or three walls? Sometimes one wall is obliterated. Yani, I'm sorry, the cavity is small. When the cavity is saghir, third wall is obliterated. When the cavity is large, there can be a third wall. So the kullun, the two walls which are present in the posterior wall are medial wall and the lateral wall. Sometimes there is a roof also. Otherwise there is a medial wall and lateral wall. And inferior horn has got two walls always, the roof and the floor. And you say, I will explain which structure is forming this roof and the floor. Now you understand this thing. You want to proceed? Okay. I was telling you that when you take out this one, remove the cerebrum. For example, this looks like this. This is the diencephalon. And then there is midbrain. And then this kullun like this. Have you seen this picture? If you put one structure like this one part is over here, one part over here, one part over here, continuously going this. This is one of the basal nuclei, which is we are going to study next week. One of the basal nuclei is known as caudate nucleus. And caudate nucleus is shaped like a comma. Yes. So this is shape of a comma or not? Yes. This is shape of a comma. So the caudate nucleus has got a head, and it has got a body, and it has got a tail. So this caudate nucleus is surrounding the diencephalon. This caudate nucleus is surrounding the diencephalon. Now, have you seen this picture?
Yes.
Now,
it
lateral.
will be above here.
I will explain. No, it is here. It is here. So this means if it is just above the thalamus like this This means this is also present in the floor of the lateral ventricle. So this is what I am telling you. You see, this is diencephalon, this is caudate nucleus, here is the lateral ventricle. This is lateral ventricle. This means this portion is coming in the floor, and this portion of the caudate nucleus is coming in the roof. Agreed or not?
Yes.
So this is how you can understand. So what structure is forming the roof of the inferior horn? The tail of the caudate nucleus. The tail of the caudate nucleus. If you understand this C-shaped structure. Okay, I have got a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, whose name is Building of the Brain. Building of the brain means they will mention first the diencephalon, then they will make the C-shaped structure, the caudate nucleus, then they will make the lateral ventricle, then they will make the cerebrum. Building of the brain. So you can understand this. You can see this picture. We can show this picture moving in the class also, if you want to understand.
Yes, please.
So this is, but you have already understood from here partly.
Yes, so
We will repeat this. Okay, we will repeat this. So, but at least you can say that in the roof of the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle comes the tail of the caudate nucleus, isn't it or not? At the tip of the tail of the caudate nucleus, if you make the caudate nucleus, again I will make a C-shaped structure of the caudate nucleus, as a khalas caudate, head, body and the tail. At the tip of the caudate nucleus here is one of the another basal nuclei, and kullun there are how many basal nuclei? 4. And their names are caudate nucleus. This is our first class next week. Lentiform nucleus. And by the way, this lentiform nucleus is known as lentiform nucleus because it looks like a lens. Lens. Lentiform nucleus. And the third one is the amygdala. Have Dr. Mahmood Badevi ever told you about amygdaloid body? Amygdala.
No.
Have you been told about limbic system?
no,
Next week.
So this is amygdaloid body. Amygdaloid body or amygdala. The third one and fourth one is claustrum. These are the 4 basal nuclei. So this amygdaloid body is located over here near the tip of the tail of the caudate nucleus. So this also comes in the roof of the inferior horn. So inferior horn roof has got how many structures now? 2. Tail of the caudate nucleus and amygdaloid body. So which structure is forming the floor? This I will explain over here. If you remove this one, sir, this is which lobe is this one? Temporal lobe. If you remove this structure, we will be able to see the temporal lobe only. So this portion of the temporal lobe. Okay. Do you remember the surfaces of the cerebrum we talked about? Okay, I will make a drawing. Should we make another one? Shuf now. No, see here. This is the inferior surface. Inferior surface of the cerebrum. So should we make it like this one or not? Like this portion and this portion. This is resembling this one or not?
Yes.
Dulal, what do you think? This is the inferior portion of which lobe? Frontal lobe. And this both are the inferior portion of temporal lobe and occipital lobe. This is the picture or not? This is right side inferior surface or not? Left side you will make the similar one on the left side. This is the beginning of the lateral sulcus. The lateral sulcus begins from inferior surface, then it reaches on to the superior lateral surface, and then it passes like this. This is the lateral sulcus we talked about. This is the central sulcus. So we told you about these 2 important sulci, the central sulcus and the lateral sulcus, isn't it or not? Then we said over here that actually this is the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus. This is the ascending ramus of the lateral sulcus. This is the horizontal ramus of the lateral sulcus. So we told you that lateral sulcus actually has got a stem which is present on the inferior surface, and then it has got 3 branches, 3 furrow. This is the posterior ramus, this is the ascending ramus, and this is the horizontal ramus. So this is the lateral sulcus. This is posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus. This is the stem of the lateral sulcus. This is the stem of the lateral sulcus. Do you agree? Okay. There are some sulci over here and some gyri over here or not? Sulci and gyri everywhere.
Yes.
So we have to remember their names.
Okay.
So please you have to remember at the inferior surface of the temporal lobe and the occipital lobe, these 2 important sulci. These 2 sulci. How many gyri should be there then? 3.
1, 2,
This one, and this one.
Middle or severe.
So you have to remember their names. This sulcus is known as collateral sulcus.
Collateral.
This is the name of this collateral sulcus. This sulcus is known as occipitotemporal sulcus. شوف. Because it extends from the occipital lobe up to the temporal lobe. Occipitotemporal
Temporal lobe.
sulcus.
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 How many gyri? Three
Three.
gyri. This gyrus is known as lateral occipitotemporal gyrus. This is known as medial occipitotemporal gyrus. This gyrus has separate name.
كله سنة.
No, this is difficult name.
Why?
This is because para, hippo, campal gyrus.
Who is the statistics?
So you have to remember this gauge. So first you have to remember these names of the sulci and at least the gyri on the surfaces. Superior lateral surface, medial surface and inferior surface.